Guns N' Roses was one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, from their sudden rise to fortune and fame until their breakout. I've always been a huge music fan. When I was a teenager, for some unknown reason, I was drawn to the band Guns N' Roses. I became very interested in their music, the band members, and the history of the band. Even though I was never able to see the original band perform, I have seen the new lineup perform 3 times. First, I'm going to talk about how the band formed. There were 2 bands in Hollywood trying to survive in the rock and roll world, Hollywood Rose and LA Guns. 2 members from each band ended up meeting with the addition of one other member from Seattle, and they formed Guns N' Roses. The band now consisted of 5 members: Axl Rose, lead singer, Slash as lead guitar, Izzy Stradlin as guitar, Duff McKagan as bass, and Steven Adler as drums. The newly formed band Guns N' Roses started writing their own music and playing gigs around Hollywood when they were finally discovered. So now that I told you how the band was formed, I'm now going to talk about how they rose to fame. Guns N' Roses released their debut album, Appetite for Destruction, in 1987. Appetite for Destruction made Guns N' Roses a name. It was a huge success for the band. Their next album to be released in 1988 was GNR Lies, which was a controversial album due to Axl's racist comments in a song. A couple years later, in 1991, they released a double disc album, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. During the making of this album, Steven Adler left the band and was replaced by drummer Matt Sorum. Guns N' Roses' last album to be released in 1993 was The Spaghetti Incident, which was a set of cover tracks. During the making of this album, guitarist Izzy Stradlin left and was replaced by Gilby Clarke. Now that you know about Guns N' Roses and how they rose to fame in 1987 and how they started to fall apart, I'm now going to tell you where they are today. After the release of The Spaghetti Incident, the band fell apart due to personal differences. The members all went their separate ways. Slash, Duff McKagan, and Matt Sorum formed the band Velvet Revolver with lead singer Scott Weiland, which ended after 2 albums. All members are currently working on new material with new bands. Axl Rose currently owns Guns N' Roses and still tours with a whole new lineup of members. He released the album Chinese Democracy in 2008. The new Guns N' Roses band is currently touring Europe. So now that you know all about the rise and the fall of my favorite band, Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses started with 5 small-town boys who were trying to survive in the 80s rock and roll world. The 5 joined and formed one of the best rock and roll bands of all time, and at one point they had it all. Their success was huge, but it was too good to be true and fell apart. Some say they may reconcile and recreate music history. Even though I would love to see that day, it most likely will never happen. So all we can do is remember the past and enjoy some good rock and roll.